So in terms of looking at how this might help in the long term for education for lymphedema, throughout at any level you want to educate, you want people to be able to inform people who are at risk or who have it, educate them and support them no matter what stage you are there at. So just getting people to think about lymphedema. Is it relevant? Is this person at risk? Could this swelling be lymphedema? And to actually look at legs, arms, swelling, not just to dismiss it, which has often been done. And even, I'm not sure if it's a problem here, but even the nurses in the UK who regularly deal with varicose vein problems or leg ulcers have admitted that they don't look above the knee. You know, they look at the ulcer, but they don't look at anything else. So even if we can encourage people to look a bit more and think about what they're seeing, and is it a lymphatic problem, would be a step in the right direction. But then to do something about it, that might just be giving advice, it might be suggesting there is an organisation that you can go and get more information, or it might be referring to a specialist. But again, it's keeping it very simple. But that in itself could make a huge difference in terms of reducing over time that incidence, the number of people with lymphedema, the severity of it, because it would be picked up early, and hopefully enable people to have a much better quality of life and not have to struggle with some of the severe problems that people have had in the past. And that's not to mention the other carrot, the other reward, is that it will reduce cost for the health service and hopefully more services, but I wouldn't wait on that one. But there are huge benefits from taking it slowly and steadily. And this is a kind of linked with that. This is a model that we use in Scotland, anticipatory care problem, that's trying to be ahead of the game all the time. And it's different levels of prevention. So primary prevention would be who is at risk. If we know that, what can we advise people to do to help? And it's all linked with other good health promotion and education. And then the second prevention is picking up early, so treating it before there are huge problems. And then what's called tertiary, or the third level of prevention, where if somebody has a condition such as lipedema, lymphedema, it's still being very active in making sure they don't have problems, preventing cellulitis, preventing infection, and preventing wounds. So it's getting that thinking ahead approach started. Now, one other thing that's happened in the UK, and I think has been quite useful, this won't apply to everybody, but there is a campaign that started called the Legs Matter campaign. So clearly this is not targeting people who have breast cancer-related lymphedema. It's more about the lower limb problems. And it was started off by a group that we have tissue viability nurses. Do you have that in Sweden? It'd be nurses who tend to look after people with leg ulcers and skin problems and chronic wounds. Okay. So that particular organisation started this off, but there's a whole other group of organisations such as podiatrists who look after feet. Yeah.
Very few.
Very few. But those kind of groups that are interested in wounds, pressure sores, ulcers and skin problems, and they were aware that there was a huge problem, people didn't manage it well, and there's a huge cost. There's something like £5 billion a year spent on trying to heal wounds, and if it was managed properly, it would be a tenth of that. And people are, the relevance of this for lymphedema in the British Lymphology Society is that we know that people who have swelling, who have lymphedema, are more at risk of getting wounds. If they have a wound, it tends to not heal well. And likewise, if somebody has a chronic wound, they tend to get a lot of inflammation. So all these cells that we're talking about this morning create more inflammation, create more edema, and make the problem worse. So the Brittish Lymphology Society became one of the groups that invested in this particular campaign to try and raise awareness of a whole host of related problems. Now, this particular group has been very successful in getting those messages out, and it's now got the attention of the health department, who are looking at chronic wounds. So sometimes it's not obvious, you know, if you need to go beyond the lymphedema or lipödem specialists, but sometimes there are allies out there that can really help you get that message across. That I've learned a lot from them, they hopefully learned a lot from me, and we're now taking a joint approach to do that. So just an idea, if anything comes up, don't dismiss it. And they have a website. I've left Margaret some information about it, if anybody wants to have a look at it, because the website's got information for patients as well as professionals. So if I can move on to just give you the example of this is more of a lymphedema specialist program that people have done in different ways in different countries, so this is just the way that we went about it. And we were quite fortunate. We started doing it in a small way, not assessed in any great detail, and then built it up. But then we did get some funding from a cancer charity. We have a Macmillan Cancer Support charity in the UK, and although we were teaching about lymphedema for all causes, and we do teach a bit about lymphedema in the programme, it was from the cancer charity that we got that initial funding, which was a huge help. So it's the only one available in Scotland. It's the only comprehensive programme in the UK, and it started, or was stimulated by early work by two people, that Carl and Badger, and Eunice Jeffs, no? Yes. And they started a course first, and I was their external examiner, but the funding didn't continue, so I managed to keep that going. So the course, the main part of the course spans 2 academic years, which is one of the strengths. It's not something you attend for a few weeks and then it's done. You are required to go back to practice, to consolidate, to learn, to bring back your clinical experience, learn more, and I think that's a huge benefit for the course. So we run one course which is called Core Skills in Lymphedema, and we do some preparatory work for people who come on it, and then they come for an intensive 5 days, and then go back to practice, but they have to do certain things. They have to do assessments of patients. They have to send those in to us, they get feedback on them until we feel that we're helping them improve their skills. And that's particularly focusing on helping them understand the lymphatic system, what happens when it goes wrong, assessing a patient. So even if a patient's quite complex, they should still be able to assess them, but they just don't have all the complex treatment skills at that stage. But they know the principles of management. They then have more practice, more online work that they have to do, which gives them more practice. There's assessment, their decision making, which we feel is really important. We test that. Why do you think that? If you saw that in your patient, why did you do this? What would you expect to see by treating them that way? And really challenge them until they're really thinking quite hard about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and evaluating it. We then have a really 2-part complex lymphedema programme in year 2, where we cover the more specialist skills, manual lymphatic drainage, compression bandaging. We do a bit of that early on, but for the more complex one we do it at that stage. We look at all the extra therapies that you can do, a bit of them. And we also do quite a bit about how are they going to develop their service, getting them to do audits and test their services, develop it, gather data, use that data, look at research. So it's not just about this is how you treat lymphedema. We want them to be really good at taking services forward and improving them. So that's basically the three phases of the programme. It's a bit complex, but it is possible to come and do this programme and just get what we call a continuing professional development certificate. So you don't need to be academically minded. You can come and do it at the level of a bachelor's degree or an honours degree. You'd have both here. Honours, plus a higher degree at master's level. However, even if people come and don't want to do academic study, it's still assessed. You don't get that CPD certificate unless you've been assessed to be a safe practitioner, to be making safe decisions. So you might not be able to write about research, but you do need to be sound in your decision making and understand it. We so take people from the beginner, from basic skills, and help them to build on getting better at those skills, but then more expert in their decision making and planning care and determining priorities, adapting it to suit the individual patient. And we run that partly face-to-face taught, partly based in practice. We have mentors in practice and have online telephone conversations with them and to support them online, because increasingly we find people weren't being released from practice to attend courses. It was too expensive, and people weren't completing it. So the academic programme, as I've described it, is this bit in the middle. We then also have what we call updates or masterclasses. So people are really expected, they don't all manage it, but we try and make managers aware that we expect them to come back every couple of years, and we check their techniques, we have discussions, they bring cases of their patients, and we talk through the decisions they've made and what could have been done better. There's quite a lot of new therapies, new machines, new approaches in lymphedema coming out all the time. So we try and make sure that we're introducing some of that so people are up to date, people are looking at what is the evidence for different kinds of treatments and share their expertise, and we all learn from each other. We then introduce a short online course, although it's interactive. It only runs over a week, although they've got up to 3 months to complete the work, and it's for anybody to do. And it's a good way of people who have come across problems and not know what to do with it can join and learn a bit more. For us, it's sometimes a good way of introducing people to the course. If they learn a bit about it, they're sometimes encouraged to come on and do more. But again, there is a bit of an assessment there. It's quite basic, but they do need to look at the work, they do need to look at the stuff online and be able to answer some questions on it. So that's what makes it comprehensive. We're taking it from virtually nothing to as expert as we can at different levels in a flexible way. And thinking about what makes it successful, what makes it work, is partly it's assessed in every possible way and without making too much stress for the person. You can't get anything, you can't get your CPD certificate unless you've completed some kind of assessment to show that you're safe and have learned something. So this decision making too is critical. It's not just this is how you do it, this is what you do. They have to think about their own patient. You're all different, people they see are all different. They need to be able to adapt it in a sensible and safe way. And one way we've done this is by developing our own patient assessment documentation. And we actually developed this, it was a bit of a project because we got feedback from students all the time about what they found easy to fill in, what they found helpful. But for us it was a prompt. It made it easier for us to assess their work if they had this prompt. They weren't going to miss things. It was all in this form. So this is the front page of the form, and then they have what we call a summary sheet. After that comes all the measurement sheets, all the different aspects about treatment and what they found, but everything should be able to be transferred on this so that they can look at this at any point later on and know that this patient was referred with second stage lymphedema of the right arm, and they had a problem with skin changes and ulceration, and they had a problem with whatever. So it's a real good summary, and that's a useful learning tool for them. And this is just showing you a couple of other things. This has just been changed. This is the old version, but we introduced this self-assessment for patients to do with how the lymphedema was affecting them, how they felt their quality of life was. So rather than using very complicated tools, and we suggest that the students give that to patients or send it to them before they come to the clinic so they can think about it. Because you probably had experience of somebody saying to you, so are you sleeping all right, or does it worry you anyway? And if you don't get a chance to think about it, you don't bring up the things that are important to you. But people taking that away, thinking about how lymphedema was affecting their life, gave them that opportunity. So it meant that it was much more meaningful, a much better idea of what this really meant for that individual patient. And then it was followed up. And this is just a part of the review form where everything's been done quite fully in the first assessment form, but then it should, to make it easier, every time a patient comes back, what has changed with their compression, what's changed with their swelling, what's changed with their skin, what's changed with how they feel about things, what's changed with what they're able to do, that kind of thing. So that has actually been a huge help in helping them to develop the skills. Many of them use this in practice. They have used it for years. Anybody can use it. We just ask that they register with us, really so that we can update them. So when we change it, when we add something new in, we can let them know there's a new version of this form. That's the only reason for doing that. But students like it. It means that they know that they've covered everything that they need to cover and explained why they're recommending certain treatments. So that's to do with teaching. Margaret asked me to say some little bit of research. I'm not saying anything about clinical research really, but there's two things that have contributed again to teaching that we've been involved in the team. And one was the development of the male genital urinary self-assessment tool. In the UK, people with breast cancer care tend to be quite well, not all, but mostly quite well provided for in terms of their lymphedema being identified early and then referred and treated or prevented even better. Gynecology, there's some problems with there, and there's a form that's been used in America for women with gynecological cancer. But we were doing some work with a urologist, and it seemed to be quite a problem in their area for some cancers. And even the urologist said, yes, they get swelling, and no, we don't do anything about it until it gets really bad. So until somebody's got really bad swelling of their testicles, penis, which must be really awful, you can imagine, and they don't do anything about it. And it's quite a sensitive area that patients aren't necessarily going to raise. So we tested out this tool with a number of patients, and generally they felt it was helpful. They enabled us to change the wording, all the terms used, to make them comfortable with it, but they found it much easier if a nurse or a doctor was given this form and saying, would they like to fill it out, it was making it easy for them to talk about, oh yes, I've got a little bit of swelling and it's causing them this problem. They're not waiting until it's really bad and causing lots of problems. So this has been used in a number of units around Scotland. We did try to get funding to validate it further, and we didn't manage that, but people are just using it as they see fit. And it's been tested in Wales and developed a bit more, but it's quite useful, and it's another assessment tool that we can introduce to our students and try and get people to pick that up and hopefully prevent lots of very distressing problems in that group of patients. And it's something that could be transferred to other cancers too. And then the other thing that we did was a study on the reliability and validity of a figure-of-8 method of measuring hand, which again, it wasn't the only study done on this. It was initially started in patients with burns, but in terms of seeing if your therapy has made any difference to the hands, there's something patient could tell you it felt better, they could do more, but there was no objective measurement. So we did this work, and now we incorporate that into teaching as a measurement of how effective is the glove, the compression, whatever it is you're doing for hand measurement. So that's really, we run with a very small staff, part-time person, and it might seem it's been great that we could do it in university, but when I asked about setting up this course, I told people, yes, you can set it up as long as it doesn't cost anything and you can do everything else as well. So there was no help, no support, it was all extra work, and the people involved in teaching this course still do other things, otherwise they wouldn't be employed in the department. And it's very much what we call a labour of love. And there's not much room for research, I have to say, but we have done that because it's very relevant to what we do and has helped what we do in terms of teaching. So that's really all I wanted to say about the programme. So we're trying to cover the specialist at every level. Hopefully with the labs, we will reach a bit further afield to make a difference in a much wider way. And maybe in 10 years' time, which is probably what it will take, it will look a bit different. So hopefully eventually we have this thing about socking it to lymphedema, part of our awareness campaign every year. And it's not just about legs, but socks is a good way of drawing attention to it. And just with everybody's help, hopefully you'll help us, you'll spread the word, and we'll all contribute to making a difference. So thank you very much.